Hello and welcome back, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean, aka Nasty Bones, and I'm here again today with August. We're going to continue part 2 of building a Raider Outpost at Sunshine Tidings Co-op. Now, I've already placed 2 matching floors in, just like we did in the last video. I've also added 2 elevators that are the 4-story sized elevators. We're totaling 7 stories, or I should say barn wall stories, high in the air right now. I've got a pretty good little idea. It should be fun, it should be interesting, and I hope it works. But I don't know if it's going to or not. I think I'm going to need something a little taller. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's throw the floor in and get our first pieces down. At this point, most of the floor layout is done. I've also added in this metal prefab piece, and we'll see what I'm going to use that for here in a few. But right now, what I'd like to do is extend our floor out just a little bit because I want to create an accent. The wall will not go all the way out there. That piece will stick out. I'm going to go ahead and use concrete. For the type of look that I'm trying to get, concrete is going to be our best option. And we'll put up a couple of the straight walls. We'll also put up one more curved piece, which will line us up with our floor, but it won't go out onto the curved concrete floor. Like I said, it'll be like an accent. Now I'll just repeat this process here on the other side. Now this is going to be a 2-story room here. And what I'd like to do is create the accents on the front of the build just like we did on the floor. So I'm just showing how I moved a few objects around to snap the floor in where I'd like it. And then I just move them up to the next part of the build. Add in the curved wall piece, move the corridor up. Go ahead, snap one more concrete curved floor in. Take the other pieces out. Put our wall back. We've got our accents added in that quick. Originally, I wanted to use metal walls for the front of our build, but I need 10 stories. So I've placed some concrete pieces out, and I am exactly at 10 stories. This isn't going to work. So now I'm a little bit worried on what we're going to do to create the type of effect that I'd like to do. So after a few quick modifications to my plan, I decided to use this half a barn wall. I need to go 10 layers, and this should total out to be about 7 stories by doing this. So what I'll do is I'll stack these in here 4 high, and I'll fill the entire front of the build. Once I've got the build up, I notice that on the ends it is 2 stories. I could actually put full barn walls in there if I want to, and I do here in a bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and strategically take out a few of these half barn walls here in the middle. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add these walls in. They actually hold a barn door. But I need a little trim on the end, or a little trim piece, and those will work great. And since this build seems to be working out good, I'm going to go ahead and take these half a barn walls out and put full barn walls in. Instead of 8 objects, I'll only have 4. Helps me with my build size. Okay, let's take a quick look at the center. What I'm trying to do here is spin the wall around so it's facing inward, not outward. The piece that I want to add on has an eave on it. I don't want the eave sticking out, I want it sticking in. And by doing it this way, it helps me achieve my goal. Next, we're going to take a quick look a couple of stories below while I add a few pieces on. Now let's take a look at what we're trying to do and what we're building here. That's right, everybody. It's a skull for Bones. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think it's going to work out. Okay, now at this point I'm boxing my face in. And somehow or another I've lost the clips on how I did that. So I'm going to use these little mock-ups to show you how I did it. To angle a roof from the bottom up, all you need is two half a barn walls. Now I'm going to go ahead and take these two out and put a full barn wall in because it's going to be a solid front. Then it's just as simple as to snap the roof in. And you can see how quick that was. Now all I need to do is snap the appropriate wall pieces in on the sides, and it's fully boxed in with an angle from the bottom. Now I'm not going to show how to do it on the top because all you do is just add the roof onto the top. Everybody knows that one already. Now this is how I did it on a concrete block. I used a wall on the surface, went ahead and put my two half a walls at the bottom, and then went ahead and snapped in the roof. Take out the bottom half a wall. Once again, just add in the appropriate pieces on the sides. And this is basically the technique that I used to create the angled pieces for the face. I didn't want it fully square, so a little bit of an angle helps give it some more character. This is a clip of the finished build, but since we watched the last segment, we can kind of get an idea of what I did to box that all in. Run the roof angles from the bottom, then of course the roof angles on the top. This is the teeth and the lower jaw part of the skull. Okay, now let's take a quick look at how I started the electric. I'm going to use these conduit pipings. I can't put the curved piece out where I need it, so what I'm doing is I'm making sure it's lined up and straight by adding the longer conduit pieces, and then I'm adding the pieces on I need to place that curve where I'd like it. Now I'll just add in a few more straight ones, and once I get it over to the generator as close as I'd like it, I'll just go ahead and add in one of the upper conduit one of these, I don't know what it's called, wall pass through. There you go. But by the way I did this, the piping is going to be right up against the floor, which will allow me to actually snap a floor in. And as you can see, I have a prefab underneath the floor right there, and there will be prefabs down below. So I've just got to make sure that it'll all snap together, and it does. Works good. Alright, now it's time to run power in the floor that I'm standing on. But I need to get the floorboards up where I can put the power conduits on them. And I wanted to use this tall metal post, but I'm right in the sweet spot of the build height. As a matter of fact, if I would jump, it would say you're out of build area. So I'm going to use the shorter one. Now this allows me to place the electrical conduits on the edges easily without trying to move them around on the floor itself. Now I'll just find the center here, put one on. My electrical conduits are about 2 floor widths apart, which will make the floor wire sag very noticeable. And I'll repeat the process on the other side of the floor. It's also connected to our conduit piping junction, but now I need to connect this conduit to our conduit junction, which is clear over there. And as you can see, I have floors and roofs in the way. Well, I'm going to glitch the wire, and this is how I do it. I highlight the wire, but then put the cursor on the conduit I want to run the wire from. Then I go to the one I want to connect it to, which is this junction, push Y, and it will connect. But be aware, once you do this, you have to press B. If you don't, it will ask you to scrap the wire you just put in. If you work with this a time or two, you'll see how it works. It's extremely convenient and easy, but it can get a little confusing. So just remember, you got to press B. Now I'll go ahead and put all our floor pieces back in to hide our wiring. Okay, that one won't go, so we'll put our floor in that has the wiring connected to it, everything drops in just fine. Now, all we got to do is run this concrete piece down lower where we want to run our power. But first, before I install it, I need to add another electrical conduit to this concrete wall because it's going to go even farther down in the build. Now spin our piece around, connect the two together, then go ahead and put our concrete wall in where it belongs. Yeah, that looks good, and as you can see, the wires running right up through the wall there. Now all I need to do is just finish off the trim up here, finish the build as I'm coming down, running the electrical. Then I can go ahead and go down, grab our half wall, place it in where it needs to go, and our wiring is pretty much installed and in at this point. As I was running my electrical to ground level, I noticed I had a pretty good gap between the elevator and the curved wall. And I didn't really like it. When you were going up, you could see it. It was real noticeable. So I'm going to go ahead and use these barn walls that you use a barn door or snap a barn door to. By doing that, it doesn't cover up enough of the wall, so I'm able to go ahead and continue to snap my curved wall pieces in. Now all I got to do is just add all the rest of the concrete pieces in that I took out. Yeah, I am very, very happy with that. Even though this build is looking better than I had imagined it, it's still missing something. And after looking at it for a while, what I decided is it didn't look realistic. This upper part connected to the elevators just doesn't look real because they're hanging out there. So what I need to do is make some supports so it looks like it's supported and more realistic. And this is how I'm going to do it. First of all, I'm going to use these concrete floors that you find in the barn section. Then I'm going to use these ball tracks that are on a 45-degree angle, and we'll go get us a concrete pillar, bring it in. Now the reason I'm using the concrete floor from the barn section is because I can sink a concrete pillar into it. Normally they won't sink into a floor unless you have something to snap it to. Now I'll grab that piece, bring it over, place it where I think that it'll look good, move it around, and once I get it up against the wall and up against the ceiling, then I'll go ahead and release it. And that gives a nice little look that looks like a support or a piece going out holding that area up. And we'll go ahead and do it one more time for the other side. This is a little bit close, so we're using these long ones by themselves. But now I'm able to adjust these where I want them by sinking them in the floor with a concrete pillar. This is a great tip to do group select without going all the way down to the ground. Now I've got quite a few of the supports in, and I decided one wasn't enough. We needed multiple. So I've already installed 2 more supports in the front. I went 1 full ball track and then a half a ball track. But now what I'm going to do is make these ones taller and go with the 2 full-sized ball tracks. Now I'll just repeat the same process as we did in the last segment. The only difference is I will move the pillar forward so that way I can get a better look at it because it is so much more bigger. And we'll just take a second to get it where I think it's the best. Move our floor out of the way, group select it, bring it over to our build, and then we'll just try to line it up the best that we can. Make sure that you're up against the wall and up against the ceiling. Now for the other side, we'll repeat the process again one more time. Moving the pillar out as far as we can. Group select, bring it over, and, just keep adjusting it until we can see it the best that we can see it. Now I'm using the first support as a guide, And then I'll go ahead and release it. That looks really good. They're not real close. They got a pretty good distance. It reaches out towards the end of the build. And now I'll just go ahead and clear our work area out, and let's take a look at it. That does definitely look a lot more realistic. It just doesn't look like those pieces are floating out there. Excellent. We're back up at the eyes and the nose. We're just going to take a quick look at how I trimmed it all out. Now, there were several snap areas that I could have worked with. I could have arranged this several different ways, but this is the way I ended up doing it, framing it in. You can use it as storage, maybe put some power armor suits there. Also, for the nose, I felt it was a little wide, so I used a couple of the small walls, then went ahead and snapped a door in. It really thinned the nose down and helped, the look of that. It just was way, way too big. Now this is up above the elevator. Because it did stick up a little bit, I utilized that to make a bed platform, and I've added a little bit of furniture in and started decorating. Well, before we go, let's take a quick look at this part of the finished build. Really, at this point, all I got to do is add some lights in and a few other odds and ends to complete it. But boy, that really looks good. Imagine coming up onto this settlement and seeing that, the fear that will strike into the hearts of my enemies. Plus, it was fun building it. Okay, everybody, that's about it for this video. August and I really appreciate you guys coming today, hanging out with us, and helping us out with this build. We do appreciate you and your precious time. Thank you. Thank you very much. And just like always, please, until next time, stay safe and peace.